And I see things differently.
Hello, Angel.
This place about to blow.
We're angels, not saints.
ABC's Charlie's Angels premieres Thursday, September 22nd on ABC.
Before Faylene Grant or Julie Jensen ever put pen to paper, foretelling their deaths and providing investigators a possible blueprint for their murders, there was a paper trail of another kind. Remember those pornographic photos that continue to show up at the Jensen home and around their neighborhood? Who, Julie wondered, would do such a thing? Private investigator Dave Ellis believes he knows.
In my mind, I was starting to think that it was Mark that was trying to either humiliate her, embarrass her, psychologically abuse her.
He said it to Julie. What was her reaction?
She agreed that Mark was capable, but she really didn't want to believe that Mark would do it.
Ellis also notices that the lurid pictures like these never show the couple's faces, and the multiple angles in the shots would require a virtual studio of cameras and lights. This isn't Julie at all.
If, in fact, Mark Jensen was responsible for putting that pornography out there, what does it tell you about his mind?
It tells me that he's cold, sick, hateful, vengeful person. He just could not let her forget that she made this mistake 9 years ago.
The police come to a similar conclusion, and in this 1999 interrogation of Mark Jensen, they pull no punches. After more than an hour of interrogation about the photos, Mark Jensen seems on the verge of admitting to planting at least some of them. But humiliation with pornography is not an admission of murder. On that, Mark is clear. Meanwhile, the case against Mark Jensen was also deepening on another front. Remember that on the night of Julie's death, District Attorney Bob Jambois had suspicions about Mark. Taking him aside, Jambois deals out a legal sleight of hand, masked as a friendly suggestion.
We had no evidence of physical injury to her. We just didn't really know how she died. And in order to get a search warrant, you've got to have evidence that there's been a crime.
Unless the individual
Consents.
to the search.
And I said, Mr. Jensen, I'm very sorry for your loss. I gave him a hug. I said, in situations like this, the insurance companies ask a lot of questions, and in order for us to be able to answer those questions, we've got to do a full-fledged death scene investigation. Do you understand that? And he said, yes. I said, we're probably going to take that computer over there, too. You don't mind that, do you? And there was a hesitation, and he said, no, that's okay. You can take the computer.
At first glance, the Jensen's computer reveals no evidence of crime or even a motive. But buried deep in the hard drive is a ghostly trail. Using a powerful software program called Shadow 2, the lost internet history of someone keenly interested in poisons begins to reveal itself. Websites and search engine queries for poisoning and drug interactions come up. And for the first time, the words ethylene glycol are seen, the main ingredient in antifreeze.
Ethylene glycol. Pretty rough stuff.
It's a horrible way to die. If you look it up on the internet, which is what somebody was doing in this case, you go through 3 stages. And the first stage, you feel inebriated. But then the second stage, you start having difficulty breathing, there's a rapid pulse rate, you start vomiting. And then in the third stage, these septic acid crystals actually start developing relatively rapidly. But then they start building up in your kidneys. It's this drug that crystallizes you from the inside out, and then the drug is not typically caught at autopsy.
Which could explain why those original autopsy results came up empty. Prompted by the new computer evidence, Prosecutor Jambois tells the toxicologist to go back and take another look. And this time they find evidence of ethylene glycol in Julie's stomach, kidneys, and blood. But who put it there? The killer? Or a deeply depressed woman seeking a way to end her life without bloodshed? Or perhaps this was the signature of an even more devious soul. Defense attorney Craig Albee claims Julie would do anything to keep her husband from getting custody of her children, including framing him with murder.
Julie Jensen was suffering from depression and despair, and that depression and despair caused her to take her own life. And her depression and her despair and her anger and her delusional thinking caused her to point the finger at Mark.
Albee's new theory is based on the fact that both Mark and Julie had access to the home computer. A computer that is not done talking yet. Hidden in the pixels and megabytes is another clue, another shocking revelation. Julie wasn't the only one having an affair. Mark was too, and it wasn't just a brief encounter.
Is the reference to cheeks on my desk a reference to a sexual encounter with you on his desk?
One that we joked about.
And then you respond, if you continue to be a good boy, maybe you'll get what you wish for.
At the time, Kelly Labonte was a colleague at Mark Jensen's brokerage firm, and their affair was burning up the internet.
But the Boy Scout away, Francis. And what's the Boy Scout?